Well, hi there. I'm really honored that you've come to check out this webinar on project management in ministry. Honestly, when I put this out, I was hoping for 3 or 4 guys to be able to help, and it's been neat to see and encouraging to see the response. And I'm glad that you're a part of it. It's really an honor. So let me cover just kind of a couple of preliminary things along the way, just to kind of get them out of the way so that we're aware of them. First of all, there's a Q&A. I've enabled that, and it should be able to see that on your screen if you're logged into Google+. And just if you have a question along the way, just click and type the question to me. It will come up on my screen. I'll be able to see that and be able to answer any questions that you might have. And hopefully that will be a help to you. Just remember, there is a 20-second delay, so you may type your question in, and then you will see it. So already I see Ben Garcia has a question up here, and Ben, you are in the right place. So I'll do my best to answer those questions as we go along. But again, 20-second delay, keep that in mind. So what you're seeing right now happened 20 seconds earlier, and so that's important to know. The other thing that's really important, if you do have questions and you can't access, you don't have Google+, maybe you can't access that, you can send me a text, you can send me an email. My email address is pastor@harvestfortwayne.org. If you have my cell phone, you can send me a text, and again, 20 seconds after you send it, you'll see me see it, and then I'll try to answer your question along the way. But I want to do all I can to help you and make this helpful to you, so don't be afraid to send an email or send a text if you have a question. And also, this will be available online after we air it, and I'm going to leave it up as long as I need to. So on my YouTube channel, it'll be there. I'll probably put it on my blog and that kind of stuff too. So it'll just be a chance for you to go back in if you want to, listen to it again, read it, check it out, be sure that it's helpful to you. If there's stuff that wasn't very clear and you want to watch it over again or whatever, it's available and it's free. So hopefully that'll be a help. Again, just go to my YouTube channel and or my Facebook page, and you should see it there. Also, I'm going to have it on a special projects page I built on our website, harvestfortwayne.org/projects. And if you've been there already, you've probably seen I have some documents up there, some of the videos I'm going to be referring to in this webinar. And so that's going to stay up, and this will be on there as well. So lots of ways of accessing this. And my prayer is it's going to be a help to you. In fact, let me just kind of explain why I'm doing this. God has really led me on a unique journey. When I was a youth pastor, and I was a youth pastor for 8 years, I was working, doing events, doing retreats, doing camps, and just kind of dawned on me, I do a lot of projects. And then I thought, there's got to be a better way of getting this accomplished. And, I've heard this phrase, and I used it then, and I've heard it a lot. I might not be able to work any harder, but I'm sure I can work smarter. You ever find yourself saying that? And I knew that. I felt that way. So I began to do some investigating, some asking around, and a missionary friend of mine, Pete Still, recommended a book to me called To Do, Doing, Done by Sneed and Wyckoff. It's a book that I would recommend to you, Sneed and Wyckoff, To Do, Doing, Done. It was put out by Franklin Covey Press originally. So the first part of the book has a lot of the Franklin Covey principles in it, but the majority of the book is just kind of a basics of project management. And it was eye-opening. I mean, some of the first principles there were so helpful to me, and I began to just use that in my ministry right away. So fast forward a little bit, now I'm a senior pastor, and I'm bivocational. I'm in a small church. Church isn't able to pay me full-time, so I'm teaching computer classes. I'm doing Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Microsoft Project. As I'm teaching Project, we're beginning to do more and more of these project classes, and it became evident it really benefit our clients if we were to offer a project management certification class. And so the company I was working for approached me and said, hey, would you be willing to take a course in project management or study it and be certified as a project manager? And I took it up right away. That was really interesting to me. I'd already had some experience due to my previous youth ministry. So I began reading and read a book about that thick, several of them, and studied for months and months, and took the test and passed and became Project Plus certified, and then also began teaching a certification class. And that class was a 6-hour-long, 5-day-a-week class and on project management. And I'm not, due to confidentiality, I can't say who I taught the class to, but you would know him. And I ended up traveling all over the country teaching this project management class. And you know, here I am, a small church pastor, and I'm in front of these organizations that are really world-known organizations, and I'm teaching project management, and I'm just like, God, why? Why would you have me do that? And really, eventually, got the feeling like, yeah, this is great, but why teach so-and-so how to manage a project so they can build a better Hummer when I can teach this to pastors and they can build stronger churches? And anyway, I began really praying about that, and God laid that pretty heavy on my heart a couple of months ago. And just did some research and found it's fairly easy to do a webinar with a Google Hangout on air. And so I decided we'll throw it out there and we'll see what happens. So a little bit of my experience in why I'm doing this, and I've used these principles. And really, my prayer, heartfelt prayer, is that they would just benefit you in your ministry, that you'll find the opportunity of getting ministry done more effectively. The reality is 70% of all projects end in failure, 70%. But there's a proven system to help us get it accomplished more. And the kind of stuff that we're doing, man, it's God glorifying, Christ exalting, disciple making stuff. And my heart's cry is that we can do this with more effectiveness. In fact, I want to take a moment right now and just pray for me, pray for us, and ask God to bless our time. So let's pray together. God, I love you so much. I thank you for your son, Jesus. And I thank you so much, Father, that through his death on the cross, you provided my freedom and the payment for my sin, and not because I've earned it, but because you're good and gracious. And Father, as I look back on my life, I've just seen so clearly your hand. At times I questioned it, at times I didn't know, but God, so clearly your hand in my life, directing, guiding, and just thank you so much for it. And thank you for just these principles that you've allowed me to come across. And my prayer, God, just would you use this? Would you use this time? Would you use this webinar to help other pastors, other churches have a more effective process of getting things done? And all for your glory, God, bear fruit for your glory, bear fruit for your name through this, and we'll give you the praise in Christ's name. Amen. All right, so here's kind of how we're going to roll things out. I'm going to kind of take 3 different passes at the project management process. Again, there is a process of project management, and I want to take 3 different passes at it to kind of get an idea. So we're going to take the view from 500,000 feet. I'm just going to skim over the top of this is how projects work, the basic phases of project, can give you a basic overview of each phase. And then after that, we're going to come back and take a little more in-depth look at each phase and give you some practical tools to get those phases done with better effectiveness. And then hopefully, if time allows, at the very end, we'll actually get on the ground level, and it won't take long, but we'll just kind of walk through an actual project, putting it all together with the steps that I'm talking about and the tools that I'm talking about. And my prayer is that it'll, again, be a help to you as we do that. So first of all, we're going to cover, I'm going to flip my screen over here and do a presentation. And I've tested it out earlier. It should work just fine. If there's any issues, I'm seeing the comments up here, so don't be afraid to let me know, and then I'll see if I can get it fixed. But we're talking about project management and ministry, and how to do ministry smarter, not just harder, and really that is project management. It is a process of learning how to get it accomplished. So let's start with this question. By the way, so number 1, this is the view from 500,000 feet, and we're saying this: understanding the principles of effective project management, or the stuff I need to know in order to work smarter. Look, my teaching is very, very simple. I always do it this way: know, do. Stuff we need to know, stuff we need to do. Principles and practice, doctrine and duty. All that is very similar to how I preach and teach, but this is what we're doing here. So there's some basic principles of project management that we need to know in order to work smarter. So here's a good question to start out with. What exactly is a project? Okay, so the Project Management Institute, or PMI, has defined a project this way: it's a temporary group activity designed to produce a unique product, service, or result. So here's some important things to note about a project. It's temporary. In other words, it has a start date and it has an end date. There is a start and a finish to a project, and so that's something important. It's temporary. So it's different than like an ongoing system or a service. Systems in churches are important, and we want you to have good systems, but a project isn't a system. A system is something ongoing. Now, you may do a project to launch a system or to introduce or brainstorm and figure out a system, but a project normally has a unique start date and a unique end date, and it produces something. There is a key end deliverable. There's something that you're trying to create. So maybe some examples of what projects could be. You have projects you do in your home. So maybe finishing the basement is a project. Hopefully, you're not in the ongoing system of finishing your basement. Maybe you are. But normally, it's like, okay, we're going to start the project here. We're going to end it here. There's a start and a finish date, and there's a desired outcome. The basement will look new. It'll be remodeled. Maybe landscaping the yard could be a project, but reality is you're doing projects. You are doing projects in your home, and you're doing them in your church as well. So that outreach event you want to get launched, that's a project. You want to do a marriage conference? Great, that's a project. There's a start date and end date. The service or product is the conference itself. Or maybe you want to do a small group leader training event, and that would be, so you get the idea, VBS, that's a project. So churches are doing projects all the time. We're constantly doing projects. But here's the glory. There is a proven system of project management. I'm going to cover a little bit of the history of project management. Now, honestly, ever since time began, ever since Adam built his first hut, okay, there has been project management happening, right? Things happening, getting done. But, you know, the pyramids were a project. The Great Wall was a project. But the system of project management really began to develop with the Manhattan Project, and they began to see there is a system, there is steps that can be taken in order to accomplish these things more effectively. Now, that system, the steps I'm going to be sharing with you, have been improved upon, and they've evolved, and now there's really an industry standard all across corporate America on how projects can be done with effectiveness. And in fact, this is a big thing. A lot of corporations are having separate parts of their organization that are dedicated to project management. And several of them have hired project management officers and staff to help develop project management. I've gone into several and try to help them develop a system of how to get it accomplished. So it's a big deal in our world today. And there is that proven process. Let's talk a little bit about the proven process of project management. Any project you do, from finishing your basement to building an atomic bomb or planning an effective marriage retreat, all of these projects can be broken into 4 key phases. Those phases are initiation phase, planning phase, execution control phase, and the close phase. I'm going to hit them again. Initiation, planning, execution control, and the close phase. Anything you do can be broken down into these 4 phases, and these 4 phases have important steps to show along the way. I'm going to flip back to my screen here just for a second. Important to mention this for several reasons. Knowing these steps and following these steps are really where effective project management happens. When you skip these steps, that's where you begin to have projects that fail. I mentioned earlier, 70% of all projects end up ending in failure, and somewhere along the way, these steps weren't followed. So think about it this way. Have you ever sat in your office and just dreamed about something, had some incredible idea, something you really wanted to see done in your ministry, and you were pretty fired up about it? So you just began attacking it and began doing it, only to discover you didn't think about this, and there's an aspect here that you didn't quite anticipate, and as excited as you are about this, your elders aren't quite as excited, and the more you go along on this, the more you're feeling like the lone ranger on it, and then there's this risk that comes up, and all these things that happen. Eventually, the dream just dies, and you don't end up getting that accomplished. I know that's happened to me before. So what project management, what these phases will give you, is a proven step-by-step to help you take these dreams, these ideas that you want to do for God's glory, to actually bring them to fruition. And so learning these steps, learning these phases, and getting them accomplished is really very important. So let's go back into this and look in more detail at these phases and how we can use them better for God's glory. So again, the 4 phases: initiation, planning, execution, control, and close. So let's talk a little bit about the initiation phase. So again, right now we're taking that 5,000-foot view. We're just going to pass over them. I'm going to give you the highlights of each of them. Then we're going to come back through them and dive a little more detailed into them. So, okay, the initiation phase. All right, this is the very beginning of a project. You have this idea that this this project comes your way and you want to get it completed. And so there's some steps to take initially. It's what I sometimes call the dream and define stage. So you're dreaming about it, but that dream needs to be clarified. That dream needs to be clearly defined. So it's important to keep in mind. So here's some key kind of questions that you'll be want to asking yourself and your team when it comes to this project. So what exactly are we trying to do? All right, I'm going to use an example in this pass-through of finishing a bathroom. Now, we're not doing this right now. Our bathrooms are fine. But let's say that Courtney and I decided we're going to finish our bathroom. So exactly what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to do a complete remodel? Are we trying to just freshen it up a little bit? You need to clearly define what it is we're doing. And then the next question, why do we want to do it? Why is this an important project to take on? And when it comes to the church, you want to be sure that the project that you're doing is in accordance with your mission. Is it helping you accomplish your mission? Is it strengthening one of your core values? Obviously, the question, if that question is no, it's not doing either of those things. And the question is this project really even worth our time and our energy? But why do we want to do it? Number 2, very important, who will be affected by this? Who is going to be a part of this team? Or who's going to be affected by the results of this project? Very important question to answer. Next question, what will we need to get it done? What are the resources we're going to need? Which brings us to this, how much do we think it's going to cost? How long will it take? And really you're landing on these 2 key questions. Is this feasible and is this valuable? Now, the goal of the initiation phase is to clearly define the project and then communicate that in such a way that it builds excitement and you get buy-in. In Harvest World, I think it's important to mention clarity, simplicity, urgency. So make the goal of this project clear, make it simple, but with urgency behind it to get that excitement and that buy-in. So let's go back to the redoing the bathroom example. So let's say Courtney and I decide, yeah, we're going to redo our bathroom. Well, when she thinks about redoing the bathroom, she's got one thing in mind. And when I think about redoing the bathroom, I have something else completely in mind. So she's thinking, I don't know, ducks and baby chickens or whatever girls think about with bathrooms. And I'm thinking like barbed wire and duct tape and OD green. And that's my dream. You have your own bathroom dream. But the point is that we have these 2 complete different visions of what it will look like when it's accomplished. And if we begin just doing the project without communicating and defining that and agreeing together, well, the project is not going to end well. Now, that's a simple example, but think about the projects that you've tried to accomplish in your church, and you have one thing in mind, only to find out later that other people were envisioning the project differently. So the initiation phase, and really the goal, is to clearly define the project. Sometimes we'll call that the scope, what we're going to do, what we're not going to do, the scope of the project, and then to communicate that to anybody who needs to know, anybody who's going to be affected by that. So important to understand the goal of the initiation phase. We'll talk more about scope creep later, but when this is not done well, that's where scope creep comes into play. I want to be very careful about that. So again, clarity, simplicity, urgency, clear, simple, urgent way of communicating this. So again, we're passing by the initiation phase, and that initial pass by, I would just say important to understand the meaning behind it, why we're doing it, we're defining the project. Number 2, we have the planning phase. So once you've done the initiation phase, now you're on, so it's defined, it's communicated, and you're going. So now it's time to begin to plan. Now, our tendency is to start getting stuff done, okay? So we've got the dream, now we want to start doing stuff. And if we're not careful, we're going to end up really in a world of hurt. So we need to plan. We need to plan. And so plan what? What do we plan? Well, here's what we're going to do. But the goal is to create a plan to bring the project to completion. That's simple enough. I need to know the tasks involved. I need to know the communication plan. I need to know the risk plan. I need to know the steps I have to take to get this project done. So I need to think about this whole phase. Now, I'm not even doing anything yet. I haven't even started accomplishing tasks yet. I've just defined what we're doing, and now I'm going back through and thoroughly planning that out. And I know a lot of guys have a hard time with that, but that's the reality of it. And here's the questions you want to answer really in the planning phase. Who will do what, when, and for how much? That's what the planning phase answers. Who will do what, when will they do it, and for how much? That's the planning phase. Just a word on the importance of this. Again, our tendency is to do, but I really appreciate a quote by Crawford, who said this. Crawford said, for every moment you spend planning, now Crawford was the former president of DuPont, so they got some stuff done. And he said this, for every moment you spend planning, you will save 2 or 3 moments in execution. So true. If you plan well, you will execute quicker and better. So men, I know, again, we're doers. We like to get things done, but let's not skip the important steps of defining the dream and then planning to get it done effectively. All right, so we're planning tasks. Tasks are just the stuff that needs to happen, the to-dos that need to be accomplished. More than that, we're planning the team. Who do I need to get this done? You're also planning out communication. I'm going to really talk more about that in other seminars I'm going to do down the road. I'm going to just put up other videos about communication plan and risk planning. Don't want to spend the time talking about them today, but they're really important and helpful. So we'll get back to those in just a moment. And then also, yeah, so planning, just getting in that detailed plan, vital part of the process. So initiation, we're clearly defining what we're doing. We are then communicating that definition of what success is going to be in our project to our team, getting buy-in, getting excitement for it, and now that we're ready to go, we decided it's feasible, it's a part of our mission, it helps us strengthen our core values. Now we're in the planning phase, and we're planning step by step the tasks, the communication, everything that has to happen to get this thing done. And now once you have it planned out, so you have initiation planning, the next phase execution and control. And what we're trying to do here is get it done, and we're trying to get it done on time, under budget, and high quality. So really, think about these two things. It's effectively managing cost, time, and quality. That's the goal of the execution phase, to effectively manage the cost of the cost of budget, the time or the schedule, and then the quality of a project. Quicker, cheaper, better. That's always the goal. You want to get it done quicker, cheaper, better. But there's always a payoff, and you got to think about this. If I want it done quickly, it's going to cost more money and not be as high of quality. If I want it to get done cheaply, then it's going to take longer and it won't be as good. And if quality is the main thing, it's going to cost more and probably take longer. So you're always kind of managing these three ideas. It all has to be managed. So a quick question as we're thinking about this, which is more important, cost, time, or quality? Well, that's really going to depend upon the project. And even with a specific project, it'll depend upon your elders and church leaders. So we call those stakeholders. Anybody who has a vested interest in the project is a stakeholder, and they're all going to have different opinions. And so you see why it's so important in the initiation phase to identify all the people that are affected by the project, and then before you begin to really know what's more important to my elders. Is it budget more important? Do they want it done quickly? Is it just we have to have it done high quality? What are my elders' opinions? What are the people it's going to affect? What's their opinions? And really some important things to define early on. And this is what stays off scope creep, because what happens normally is you get in the execution phase, and you're rolling, you're getting tasked, but you haven't asked all the people involved, and all of a sudden a key elder says, well, this is costing way too much money, and now we're out of money, you didn't plan effectively, you didn't initiate effectively, and so now the project dies. And so we want to stay off scope creep, want to stay off that killing of a project. And so we do that by, again, effective initiation and planning phases. But here we're in the execution phase, and our goal is to manage the cost, manage the time, manage the quality, and we're going to do that using various types of software. There's software out there to help us do that. I'm going to, in fact, on my page, the project page of the harvestfortwayne.org, so harvestfortwayne.org/projects, I've already posted several videos walking you through software. I'll mention that again later, but there is software out there to help. Basecamp is a great tool. Trello is a great tool. Microsoft Project, if you can afford it, is a great tool. And what I use is a Simple Genius Project Pro. SG Project Pro is a fantastic tool to get project management done. But that's where the software helps you. It helps you, okay, what has to get accomplished? Who's doing it? Where are we staying in our cost? Is this maintaining the quality that we need? And that's the execution control phase. You're going to have project status meetings along the way. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. It's going to be managing people. We can talk for a great length about the importance of managing people and how, honestly, a statistic says that a project manager spends 80% of his time managing the people on the project. So only 20% are to the status and the task getting accomplished, and 80% is just helping people work together and get along. When I taught the 6-day course, we devoted a whole day into just people management. What was kind of cool is that they really gave me free rein, and I was teaching biblical principles of the rules of communication, not gossip, no slander. Now, I wasn't using those terms or preaching a message, but I was sharing those principles and was able to say, hey, I got these from a book, and if you're interested, let me know, and it kind of became a little opportunity. But anyway, you get the idea. There's an importance of people management that's there as well. Okay, so again, we're just sailing at this 500,000-foot view, and we're talking about the different phases. Initiation phase, we're going to define the project and communicate that to everybody involved. The planning phase, we're planning it all out, figuring out who's going to do what, when, for how much, getting a plan down, putting that in some software to help us manage it. And execution control, we're going to keep on budget, ahead of schedule, and high quality is our goal. And that's what we're trying to get accomplished. And then we come to the close phase. Now, you would think once all the tasks are done, then we're done with the project. But again, good project management skills is to have a close phase to every project. So don't just button it up and release your team before it's you should. Have a good close phase. And the close phase really has a couple of goals in there. It's really you want to document the lessons that you've learned in this process. Reality is you're going to be doing projects like this again, and you're going to be working with the team again, and it's important to evaluate. And I know at Harvest World we put a lot of emphasis on evaluation. Evaluation is a currency to excellence, we'll say, or it's the breakfast of champions. But don't miss the opportunity of having a lessons learned meeting and to step back and say, okay, what did we learn? What happened? And also then just archiving that so that you don't miss it. So putting that in a place where if you do a project similar to this, you can pull it off your shelf, look at it again, and know. What you're looking at here is what we call an S-curve. And I guess I want to just land on this for a moment because of this. I think, again, our tendency is to start doing. So we want to get this task accomplished, this project accomplished, and our tendency is just to start knocking out tasks to get it done. But an effective project will have an S-curve that looks like this. From left to right is time. From bottom to top is percent of work being done. Okay? So as time goes on, you'll see in the initiation and planning phases, not a lot of tasks are being accomplished. But if you plan well, the execution phase is dramatic and effective. So you're really able to get the stuff done in a very effective way, and then you can close it out and be done with the project. What often will happen is if the initiation phases and planning phases aren't followed well, you'll start getting stuff done, then you'll realize, oh, we didn't do the right thing at the right time, and so now that curve goes down a little bit because now you got to go back and redo some work, and kind of ends up more like a jiggly line that hopefully eventually gets to the top. as opposed to a well-planned out project. So you're really reaching for this kind of an S-curve. You've initiated well, you planned well, and now you're executing well too. So just some things to think through about getting the 50,000 foot view, so the 500,000 foot view, just a basic idea of project management. Just want to check and be sure there's no questions coming in. Great. Hopefully you're all seeing me okay and all that's going well. So let me flip back over to the screen here and continue on talking about, we're going to take that next step in now. So we've nailed down what you need to know, understanding the principles of effective project management. So we took that, kind of the first pass over, went through the 4 phases of a project, kind of got a basic idea. Now I want to dig down a little bit deeper into this and talk about utilizing the practices of effective project management, or stuff I need to do in order to work smarter. So we know some things now, and hopefully I've sold you on the importance of all 4 phases of a project. So how do we actually do it? How do we actually get that accomplished? So let's talk about the stuff we need to do in order to work smart. So to get pass back through, and let's go back to the initiation phase of a project. Hopefully I'm going to give you some practical tools to use here, and some documents to use, some steps to take, and I really want to give you that step-by-step process of what a general idea of any project can fit into. So here's step number 1, and brainstorm. Now, on the projects page, I do have a video where I talk about the mind mapping. When I read the book To Do, Doing, Done, I came across this principle of mind mapping and brainstorming, and I've used that nearly every day. Back in the day, I would get out large 11 by 17 pieces of paper and various colored markers, and I would mind map that way. And when I was a senior pastor at Cornerstone Baptist Church, I took our conference room and I put one full wall was nothing but whiteboard. Of course, now I just use software to get it done, and there are several softwares that I've used. MindJet, expensive, but it's really good, especially if you are in the Microsoft world. It really ties really well with that. I've used MindMeister, which is a cloud service, mindmeister.com, and a good service. Use them, really enjoyed that for a long time. Right now, I'm pretty sold on MindNode. I did pay the pro version as a free version, but I think it's worth the $10 or whatever it is to get the pro version of MindNode. But it's basically just a way to mind map. And I'm not going to go too much in detail right now about that. That's why I put the video up. I talk about why mind mapping is important, how it all works. You can check it out. But you're on the initiation phase. What you're going to do is you're going to take some time and mind map and brainstorm this project out. So think through some things. You want to think through mission connection. How does this project connect to our mission? You want to think through your goals and objectives. In fact, you want to be able to make bullet-pointed goals and objectives. So at the end of this whole thing, we're going to have a document in our hand, and that document is going to list out, these are the goals and objectives of this project. Cost estimates. Obviously, you got to think through, like, how much is this going to cost us? Is this going to be financially feasible? And that's where time estimates come in. And really, that question, is it feasible? Now, again, I spent hours talking about determining feasibility when it comes to a project. There's a lot to teach there, but let me just say, look at the cost, look at the schedule. Do we have the time? Do we have the money to get this accomplished? One thing I'll just mention. There is such thing as a cost of a lost opportunity. So just because a project costs you something, the question is, if we don't grab a hold of this, if we don't take this opportunity, what's the cost of that? So there's a lot of things to think through when it comes to that. But brainstorm, document it, mind map it. Again, the goal is to clarify the dream. I have found that the more people involved, the better. Well, let me say, the more people who can contribute and involve, the better. So Pastor Adam is my worship pastor, and he thinks a lot like I do about some of these things. So we'll just put a mind map up on our projector, and we'll just brainstorm through various projects that we have, thinking through these very elements, and we'll have a documented mind map when we're all done with it, so we can see what are our goals, feasibility, all those things are documented for us. So step one is to brainstorm. First thing you're going to do is sit down and brainstorm. Number two is this. You want to identify the key stakeholders. Very, very important step. Kind of mentioned this already, but let me hit it again. You get going on a project, and you're well into the execution phase, only to realize, I didn't talk to this elder. I didn't get his opinion about this project. And he's bringing up good stuff, man, good stuff that needs to happen. And all of a sudden now, what you're doing is changing, right? So you need to add these tasks in, and you need to change this element of it. And all of a sudden, the scope of what we're doing is moving, and that's what we call scope creep. And that all could have been taken care of if you identified all the key stakeholders and then did the interviewing process as well. So take care of that. Be sure that you stay away. By the way, scope creep is the #1 killer of projects. The #1 killer is that the scope gets beyond feasibility, even though it began in a feasible way, it's now beyond feasibility. So, okay, in a church, what are some common stakeholders? Well, your elders, staff members are common stakeholders. It could be that the community or even your church is a common stakeholder, and so you want to be sure that you're thinking through that. And then number three, you need to interview them. You got to ask them questions. You got to get their idea. And a key question is this. When it comes to this project, what is most important to you? So again, let's go back to the example of Courtney and I finishing off the basement. And a key question could be, hey, Courtney, when it comes to this project, what is most important for you? She may have various things, opinions about that. Well, it's most important that we stay in budget, or her thing may be, it's most important that I get my duckies up. I don't know. Whatever it is, you want to interview that stakeholder to be sure that you understand what they're, and really what you're trying to listen for is those three elements: cost, quality, and time. And I'm really trying to hear as they're talking to me, and I ask that question to this person, to this stakeholder, which of these elements is most important? Are they leaning toward budget and all that? Now, what happens when you have like various thoughts and opinions about what's important? So let's say I got 5 elders, and I'm trying to launch this project. I'm excited about this ministry opportunity, and so I'm beginning to ask them questions, and I'm beginning to see, as I talk to them individually over coffee or whatever, Bob is really fired up about it and thinks we got to go high quality, man. We can't chintz on this. We got to go all out. Where Marvin over here is saying, look, I chose Bob and Marvin. I doubt any of you have a Bob and a Marvin on your elder board. If you do, then I'm praying for him. Anyway, so to Marvin over here, his thing is like, no, man, we're tight. We can't spend that much money, so I got a couple of different thoughts and ideas. This is why you want to do both individual interviews and corporate together interviews. So get them in a room, ask the questions. If you're interested, if this is like a constant issue for you, we do have other tools like a matrix of higher needs is a tool. So you just put on a document the different people or groups of people, and then what they've identified as importance, and you can see what their higher needs, what they view as their high needs are for that project, and just handing that document out can be a help. Or elders really feel like it's important to really get this done with high quality. So even though your key team leaders may be saying, let's save money, your elders are okay with moving forward. You get the idea. You can get more buy-in that way. So you want to take the time and you want to interview these individuals corporately and together. Then the end of it, you're going to have what we call a concept document. I really encourage documentation. So documentation is just the ability to put it on paper. You want to come out of this whole thing with it clearly defined. Now, yes, another question is, do you have any examples of it? And I do. I have several. So let me show you some examples of a concept document. In fact, let me pop onto the website here and show this to you. I have a couple of them on the website. I gotta do it this way. harvestfortwayne.org/projects, and I put one example. I put it both in PDF and in Word, so it should be, should be able to get in there and edit it if you need to. So let me just write on my screen. It's awesome being a tech guy and doing tech stuff, and you just don't want to goof it up. So let me pop this open, and I'm going to go to harvestfortwayne.org/projects. What I'm mentioning to you. While I'm doing that, let me just hit some of these questions that are coming up. Someone mentioned OneNote, and I do. I like OneNote. Dan, I like OneNote a lot, and it's a great tool if you're in the Microsoft world. OneNote is an app that allows you to collect notes that you take on just about anything, and I like it. And I've used it for years. In fact, I used it for like 5 or 6 years. And then I ended up transferring over and using Evernote. And so now I pretty much exclusively use Evernote. It's free. It's available cross-platform. I was able to export all my notes there. But though there are some tools in OneNote that do allow you to do some mind mapping, it's not a mind mapping software in of itself. But yeah, it's a decent solution. So that's a good word there. Another question that came up is MindNode. Is it Mac only by Logan? I don't know if it is. I think it might be. So if you're on the PC, first of all, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for your computer salvation, that you'll see the light and fork out the cash and get an Apple. But until you do, MindJet would be an option for you. Another option would be MindMeister. I think it's $10 a month to do MindMeister, but it's a really good online mind mapping software. And I use it a lot. I like it. And I'm really glad that Greg Long is in like Flynn, that he said on his thing. Greg Long, he's my favorite contemporary Christian artist. So, all right. Let me show you some of these documents. I'm going to go to www.harvestfortwayne.org/projects. And it should bring up this page. Eventually. Of course, my bandwidth is being soaked up quite a bit by my video. So you'll notice here I have important documents, and I have several of them. Here's the concept document. At a later date, I'm going to post other seminars on the communication plan and the risk plan. So I have those documents up there for you. But I'm going to put the PDF version here of the concept document so you can see it. So you notice that there's a place to put your project title. I modeled this after corporate secular versions of this document, and kind of made it ministry specific. But that's why the project lead is there. That person's ministry position. I do think it's important that you use document versions when you create documents, because you're going to distribute these, right? And so if something changes, and it will, it always does. In fact, the standard is 15%, both in schedule and budget. It'll increase, so it'll take 15% longer and cost you 15% more. Is the kind of the industry standard on how that rolls out. So this document may change, and so you want to put like 1.2, 1.3, whatever, so that you can say what version of the document do you have, the date, the contact person, email, all that. And then you can see here the project definition. Give a description. What are you trying to do? Connect it to the mission. Connect it to list your goals and objectives, key milestones that you don't always use that, but maybe in some projects that's a really important thing to talk about. And then the question people are always going to have, the initiation phase when you're trying to get buy-in, how long is this going to take and how much will it cost? So you want to just document that, answer that question right off the board, and you'll be able to, again, save a lot of time and energy along the way. So again, that document is available both in PDF and in Word format. I do have another one that I wanted to show you that I did for another project. I'll just forget that. We'll just show that later. But that's there's other ways. There's a cool little if you're in the Apple world, God bless you. There is a template built into Pages that actually is a project management concept document kind of template. So that may help you as well. So again, just initiation phase, you're brainstorming through, you're identifying your key stakeholders, interviewing them, and then you're going to create that concept document. and that's going to really help solidify that phase. So hopefully that helps. Let's talk a little bit about the planning phase. Again, we're taking now that 5,000-foot view. We're kind of digging in a little bit more to the project and trying to get a better handle on how to get done with more effectiveness. So the planning phase. Again, we're going to have a brainstorming session. So that's why I put that separate video up. I had you go there a lot, get your team, get a mind map out, brainstorm out. But what you're going to do this time is you're going to brainstorm out the tasks, all the things that need to get accomplished for this to come to completion. It's best to break a project down. Listen, this is so important, so I'm going to say this very carefully. It's best to break a project down into chronological phases. Step by step, start from the beginning, go to the end. Again, most are saying, well, duh. But I have gone into large, world-renowned corporations to help them fix their projects. And several times, the guy in charge of the project, he just thought about all the tasks that had to be accomplished and arranged it in his logical view. So we got to do this thing, got to do this thing, got to do this thing, and didn't think about it chronologically. So then when you go to build a Gantt chart or put it in some kind of a timeline, it just doesn't work because he's got like, okay, all the things for this part of the vehicle, all the things for this part of it, and it makes sense in his mind, but you have to do it step by step, chronologically, start to finish. When you do that, and it's going to naturally fall into what we call hunks, chunks, and bites. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's go back to that redecorating my bathroom. Okay, so one of the phases I'm going to have in that project is going to be a tear out phase. Okay, so I'm going to have to tear the things out that are in there. So one of the things I'm going to tear out is my toilet. So I got tear out phase. I got toilet there. Now before I tear that out, there's some steps. I have to turn the water off. I have to drain the toilet. I got to loosen the bolts. You get the idea. Okay, there's just things that I have to do in order to pull. So it's breaking itself down into various phases. So the main project is a remodel bathroom, and then the phases are now tear out phase, and then individually underneath that is going to be, you know, toilet, sink, all of that. So you see how projects kind of break down that way. And the challenge with effective project management is taking it and saying from start to finish, what are the phases, the things that I need to do. It's not always easy to do that, but if you think even in terms of these four main phases on individual projects, a lot of them fit there. So I'm going to dive deeply at the end into a project we're going to do called Praise in the Park. And we're going to be hopefully gathering several churches of like mind in our area and finding a central location and having an evangelical outreach. But think about that. So there's going to be an initial phase of just like vision, like figuring out exactly what this is going to be and how this is all going to work. So this vision phase, well, very similar to initiation phase, just calling it something different. But you get the idea. If you kind of follow these, then we're going to have to plan out everything, right? Plan the food, plan the music, plan the preaching, all of that has to be planned out. So you see that's two kind of fitting into the planning. So you get the idea. Even individual projects can still fall and even be broken out into the same kind of four phases. So brainstorm them out, get your team together, get your mind map going, and kick this out. Now, if you use Microsoft Project and you use MindJet, there's a really cool thing. You can mind map out a project and do the work breakdown structure in MindJet and click a button. And just by clicking that button, it throws it into Microsoft Project. Now, that's, again, for larger churches with bigger budgets than what we have to be able to afford both those softwares. But if you can get, I mean, that's a really great tool. But anyway, whatever you use, brainstorm it out, mind map it out, get your work breakdown structure so you're planning the tasks, you're brainstorming through the tasks. Then you got to plan the resources. So, okay, now we know what has to be done. Now the question is, what do we need to get that accomplished? What people do we need? What materials or stuff do we need to get it done? And this is where the budget is determined, because you got to pay for the stuff, or you got to buy the professional labor to get it accomplished. But this is where the real cost takes into play. Now let me show you another document that I use for this. This is my resource allocation matrix is what it's called, a fancy term for it. But basically, you get the same kind of idea where you have the document, the ministry project title, the lead, the contact, the email, the date, the version. But you see what it is? What you're going to do on the left-hand side here, just list all the individual tasks that have to be accomplished. Then you got to think through the materials needed, any equipment needed, any people needed. You get the idea, and that's going to really determine your resources. So let me give you a practical kind of illustration of this. When I was teaching or leading a camp, a Bass Lake camp, we would plan out our schedule from the start of the day to the end of the day, and all throughout the day we had all these different things we were going to do. So what I did is put it in a resource allocation matrix. So I have sandwich race. Okay, for the sandwich race we need sandwich bags and bread and peanut butter, and so so a long time before that event occurs, I'm thinking through the details of the stuff I need to actually get it done, and that's what the resource allocation matrix will do for you. Just a handy tool to help you think through all the resources, but that's something that's going to occur during the planning phase of the project. So you're going to think through the resources. Now, once you have all the tasks broken down into a work breakdown structure, so you got hunks, chunks, and bites, you know what you need to get it done. Now you're going to put that plan into something. So again, let me mention various softwares you can use. You can use Basecamp, Trello, Microsoft Project. Let me pull up and show you a little bit about Basecamp so you can see how it works. I like it. We use it for a long time. We decided to step away because of cost. There's a monthly fee, and it jumped a little bit, and we decided, we'll just pull out. It's not that important. But I really like Basecamp. Some things I like about it, it's very collaborative, so it's very easy for multiple people to get in and to use it. And not only that, it's very user-friendly, very easy to use, so it doesn't take a whole lot of expertise. And you can see the layout is very, very friendly. So I have here the Praise in the Park 2015. Now, there's a whole video that I go into detail about building this, but just to give you an overview, I'm just going to click on that project. So these are individual projects. Let me jump back to here. I can start a new project by clicking right there. That's something I can do. Or just, again, if I have the project created, I can go in here and do it. So I'm going to click on Praise in the Park 2015, and to show you here, I have these tasks listed out. So I have initiation phase, I have individual tasks. So you get the idea. So there is some things you can do with that. It's a really great way of doing projects. There is, again, a video that takes you much more into depth. This is Trello. It's another software. Now, Basecamp costs. Trello is free. That's right, I said free. And with that, there's a great little tool, and we've used this some. It's not quite as user-friendly. It's not quite as easy to go in and learn, and we've had to kind of alter the way they want us to do it to make it work our way. But it's not a bad little solution. And again, I have the Praise in the Park here, so I'll pull that up. And once again, I'll just say I have a detailed explanation of all of this in in that video. But what I've done, you have boards, lists, and cards. And so this is my Praise in the Park board. So projects are boards. Lists are just that. I have a to-do list, I have a documents list and discussions list is how I broke it down. And then the cards would be the actual phases. So here's the initiation phase, and I have all these different tasks that are associated with that. You can post comments to any of this. You can put attachments, so documents can be shared on here. A lot of good things about Trello. You can't beat the price. It's free. Again, it's not very user-friendly, so I hope the video I put up helps you kind of learn how to use it, but it's a great tool. Another tool that I really like to use, the one that I use pretty much exclusively now, is SG Project, or Simple Genius Project Pro. There are two versions of it, and just to already answer your question, Logan, there is a Windows version of it, and there is a Mac version of it. Now, there's two levels. The cheaper level, really the biggest difference is it doesn't let you do stuff with multiple projects in one window, and it doesn't allow you to do the in-depth reporting that Pro will do, and for me, I needed the reports. I needed to be able to edit them and choose what I wanted in them. So I just forked out the cash, about 120 bucks to buy SG Project Pro. But I really like it. Let me just again, as a whole video, going much more into detail. But here's my projects, and these are actual projects we're doing right now. And I'm going to click on the Praise in the Park project just to kind of show you the task plan here. And you can see this is much more detailed. I'm able to break it down into much finer than I can on the other ones. In other words, I have initiation phase, define the dream, individual tasks underneath that. I can do durations, start end dates, and it builds a Gantt chart for me. I really like SG Project. But here's the point. Find a software that is going to work, that helps you plan out and keep track of the plan. And there's lots out there. Again, another one that I've used a lot is Microsoft Project. Now, I've not used the latest version of it, so it's been several years since I've been into it, but probably more than any other project software, I've used that. A couple opinions about it. It's very, very, very expensive. I think the last time I checked, it was $400. It was north of $400 for it. I'm sure you guys know, but that's a chunk of money to put out there. It's great. I mean, it's fantastic, and they've really made improvements on it since the early days. But you almost have to have some project management background before you jump into it, because it's not intuitive. So when you get in there, when the first time I opened it, I just I got a trial version, and I couldn't even figure it out until I began to teach it and learn myself how to operate it. So yeah, but here's the point: find some way to put it in so you can communicate and plan out your project. I'm not going to spend time talking about these two much right now, but because I'm going to come back, like I said, and do separate videos on these. But planning, communication, you need to figure out who needs to know what, when, and how are they going to be told. And it's amazing how you would think that you would need to, but you need to plan that out. You need to think that through. How many meetings am I going to have? Who tells who what? What level of confidentiality are we talking about? There's a lot of different things to think through with planning, communication, and then risk planning. Again, one of those things, and again, what I'm sharing with you is the proven practices, but what I felt like would really help in a church setting. Okay, so I'm not going into the detail that I would go into with one of the companies that I train. But these things, the things that I'm highlighting here, are things that I really feel like a church should grab a hold of, and I really think risk planning is one of those things. Risk planning is, okay, what could happen that would kill this project, and how can we, if it does occur, this event occurs, what are we going to do? And so thinking that through ahead of time is going to save a lot of argument and a lot of frustration. Like, we planned for this. We knew this might be a possibility, and we have something in place to either help stay that off, or now that it's happened, to help cope with it. So again, I'll talk a lot more about that later, but you do want to plan communication, you do want to plan risk, and I want to go a little more into detail. I do have a communication plan up on the website that you can take a look at if you're interested in such thing. But here's what you want to do. You want to communicate that plan out to your team. So once you have your plan done, now you need to let your team know. I mean, it seems, again, like a no-brainer, but the reality is it may not come naturally to you than to communicate with them. So how are you going to do that? What kind of meetings are you going to have? How are people going to figure out where you are in the project? And so that's something important to think about. I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment. So that's the planning phase. Kind of, again, getting deeper into it, thinking through, planning out the detail of your work, planning out their resources, really getting your mind around it. And then now next comes the execution control phase. And like I said before, what you're trying to do is manage the cost, the schedule, and the quality of a project. And to do that, you need to be able to track your progress. Now, if you're using the software, that's great, but depending on what you're using, it may end up being some work for you. So like on Basecamp, anybody's going to be able to sign in, and Trello's the same way. Anyone's going to be able to sign in who's a part of your team, who's doing tasks with you. If you set them up right, they should be able to go in and type their comments in, let you know how they're doing, check off when they got things accomplished. But if you're using like Microsoft Project or SG Project, then you're going to have some way of them reporting back to you. And this is, again, what the communication plan is all about. Like, I got to think through, how am I going to figure out where Bob is and getting the plates for the, the buffet dinner at the event? Like, is that accomplished? How do I know it's accomplished? And so, how are you going to get these project status reports into you? And you've got to think through that. Then you also got to think through of how am I going to report the progress to everybody? How's everyone going to know where we are? And are we ahead of schedule? Are we behind schedule? And how are we doing? People want to know that. So, when you talk about big corporate things, it may mean putting regular project status meetings on your calendar. It's very important to keep the communication high. And again, another reason why many projects fail is because the project manager is a poor communicator. So you want to be sure that you're communicating effectively, and that's that. I would also say this: you want to be sure you're celebrating the wins. So, if something happens effectively and you're encouraged by it, celebrate that win. And then also reward performers. Really, 20% of the people in your project is what you're going to think about. The 10% that are doing well and exceptional, and the 10% that are lagging behind. 80% of the people are going to be just on task, doing it well, run on time. But some people are going to be really excelling, and some people are going to be going behind. So how do I control that? How do I manage that? Here's some suggestions about rewarding performers. Some things I've done in the past. I've just gone to Starbucks and got like $5 Starbucks gift cards. They can get people a half a coffee. So, and then what I'll do is, like in a project meeting, they're doing well. Like, hey, Marvin, you're just rocking this out, man. Good job, dude. Here's a coffee on me. And so you're publicly praising them, handing them that coffee. Or a group email out could be a way to encourage people. But this is what we say in Harvest World is lots of investments. You're going to have to make withdrawals. You're going to have to ask people to do things. So sometimes you have to get on people. So you want to be just constantly making investments. Pastor James puts it this way: like I have a cup of grace in my hand, and I'm just going to bump into people. As I bump in, I'm just going to pour a little bit of that grace out to people around me. You're constantly thinking that way. How do I show love? How do I help people out? And so just think of things like that. And then those who are lagging, maybe they need some more time given to their project. Maybe they need your help and understanding, or maybe they just don't see the importance of how their little task fits into the project as a whole. So some things to think about in helping them. Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment. I got some questions coming up, so let me just take a minute to do that. Ben Dosty is asking me if I've ever used Asana. And I'm not familiar with that at all. So any information you have on that would be helpful. I'm always into checking out different softwares out there. Great. So good. Thanks for asking that question, Ben. And Ben is my favorite Harvest pastor of all time, Ben Dosty. He sneaking rocks. All right. So that's the execution and control phase, and hopefully, again, that information there can be helpful to you as you go along. And then let's dive in a little bit deeper into the close phase now. Again, the tendency is once the project is completed, once we're done, well, now I'm done. Finally, we're through it. Good job, everybody. But don't close out so quickly. I think about some things that will really help make you a better team at project management, getting things done, and some things that would help if you ever do a similar project like this again. So a couple of things there. It's good to have a completion party just to celebrate. Like, man, we got this accomplished. You did a good job. And again, it's pouring in. It's celebrating the wins. All those things are kind of important in project management. So think about just a completion party for the project, depending on what it is. But then you want to do this. You want to come back for a lessons learned meeting. Once again, I use the mind mapping tool, and I just put a mind map up, and I'll ask two kind of key questions. How did it go with the process of the project, and then how do we work together as a team? So those two main questions what I'm asking for. So how did the project process go? Did we execute well? Did we get tasks accomplished? Did we do what we needed to do? And then the other question, how do we work as a team? Did we get along? Did we do it for God's glory? Were we using biblical principles to guide the way we communicated? Did we
Yeah, I mean, all those things, just thinking through that. But here's an important thing: document that someplace. Create a lessons learned, Word file, and all these documents can be kept together. For years, I used a binder. I do it all digitally now, but I used a binder previously and just kept everything in a binder. Regardless, like, you're going to have paperwork come in. You're going to have actual papers, so you can't be completely digital. Now, if you wanted to be super geeky, and I've done this at times, take a picture and put it in my Evernote, which is kind of how I keep everything. So what I do is I create an Evernote notebook, or in OneNote, it'd be a notebook, and I'll name it the project name, and I'll try to keep all of the correspondence, all the notes for that project there, so that's always available on my phone, right? So, and my iPad or my computer, whatever, I always have it at my fingertips, and I can take any notes. So I place a phone call because the plates weren't, we're behind schedule. I don't know if we're getting plates yet, so I'm calling the company. I talked to Barb. Barb said the plates are going to be there on time. All that stuff can be documented and that kind of a thing. The other thing, so that's one way of doing it. Like I said, you're going to have the paperwork come in. So one thing that I'll do, I have, and this is something I learned from the To Do Doing Done book. I have what I call a quick access file drawer. It's, in fact, let me just do this. Let me flip over and kind of see what you can see in my actual office. One of those tools that was really helpful to me when I was studying that book, and one of the things I still do today, you will notice that my desk, besides a few things like my delicious coffee and a pen, is clean. I don't have a lot of stuff here on my desk. What I do is I keep everything in a drawer right here. So what I have is an A to Z, and then I have a project section. So two main sections to the drawer here. Now the A to Z are really just tasks that I had. So this paperwork, there's a lot less now than it used to be, but it still is paperwork that comes into my office. Let's say this paper comes in, and it's something I have to get accomplished. It's an invoice I have to, approve or something like that. So I either need to get it done right now and pass it on, but what you don't want to do is stack it on your desk and leave it here to stack up and things get lost. So here's what I've been doing is you take this, you go to whatever you use for your task management, and so Outlook, maybe if you use that, there's a to-do list there. I use the reminders in Apple because, praise God, I'm in the Apple world. Logan, I'm praying for you, bro. I really am. But so there's, I just put it in the reminders list, and then what I'll do is I'll say, like, look over invoice, and then put in parentheses after it AF:I, which stands for action file I. And what I'll do is take this invoice and put it in my I folder. So what it does is off the desk, it's planned to be done, and I know where it is. And something I read in that To Do Doing Done book that completely changed. I mean, the next week my desk was clear, and people were commenting, "What? How'd your desk get so clean? And why is it so clean?" And just learning that system really helped. So in addition to that, I do have a projects folder, and in my projects file here, I should say, I have various folders. So we're doing backyard barbecues, and there's some paper coming in for that. Here is a document on that. We're working on 501c3 status right now, and there's all kinds of stinking documents for that, and I can't be completely digital there. So there's all that documentation. It's all kept right here in my action file, and that's been really helpful tool to me. So that is something. But anyway, at the end of the project, when you're all done, you're going to gather up all of those documents, and you're going to place them someplace where you'll remember where they are, because you're going to do this again. And if you do this project again, you're going to have the same kind of issues, and you want to be sure that you are able to manage that well. All right, so that is that. Pop back over to my other screen here. So archive, that's what that's talking about. Okay, so that is the view from the high level or more detailed view of getting a project done. So okay, all that's kind of great, but let's do this. Let's actually get in and let's walk through the same process in doing an actual project. So I mentioned to you that one of the things that we're trying to accomplish is we're going to do Praise in the Park. Praise in the Park is an event that
will involve multiple churches. And so, here's what we know right now. We got this idea. Wouldn't it be cool to get like various churches of like-mindedness together and really have like we couldn't do this. We couldn't like throw on a big, citywide kind of event. But maybe if we got other churches involved, we could do that. And so let's talk about the importance of that. So again, this is the initiation phase now. And what we're doing is we're dreaming and defining. And so looking closely at this, what are some things here? So let's talk about some goals and objectives that we can have when it comes to this event. Well, one of the goals would obviously be to have an effective venue for preaching the gospel. I mean, we want the gospel to be preached. That certainly goes along with our mission to give God glory by making disciples. So have an effective venue for preaching the gospel. That's one of our goals and objectives. Another goal is going to be to team with other like-minded churches. This is a passion of mine. I just really feel like we're so doggone segregated. And now there's some boundaries we're not going to cross. There's some separation, obviously, that's in place. We're not going to team with churches that preach a different gospel, certainly, and even some that have a radically different philosophy of ministry. We're just not going to be able to gel well. But there are lots of churches that really share very similar doctrinal statements, very similar passion for the gospel, and I think it's important for my people to see that. So it's a core kind of an objective that I have here, and then. Those are two good ones. We could think of more if you wanted to. But so some goals and objectives. So let's think about maybe just initially to think about cost. What are some resources we're going to need? Well, we're going to need a venue, so we need to research that out. So maybe a park, and the parks in town are going to cost probably about at least $500 a pop to rent at least. Are we going to need chairs? Is that something we're going to need? Are we going to need tables? You get the idea. So we're just really thinking through the different resources that we're going to need. But see, we're in this initial phase of just brainstorming, planning out, thinking through. What we're going to end up with is a list of things that we can put into that concept document, wherever I put that crazy thing. So anyway, we will be able to put that into the concept document, and that will be share that with our elders, share that with our team, get buy-in, get excitement. That's kind of the heartbeat there. So that's an initial kind of phase, identifying the key areas of goals and objectives in that. And so now we want to think, okay, who is this going to impact? Who are the people that are going to be most influenced or impacted? So we're going to identify the key stakeholders. So again, elders, staff, in this case, so I'm going to just mind map out here another level, and we'll just call this, I'll just call this key people. So, yeah, they didn't type it in right. So that's going to be pastors, right? Not just me, but other pastors in our area are going to be key stakeholders, so other pastors, and I may sit down here in this mind map and actually brainstorm out specifically some guys who might be involved, but hey, these guys are going to be key stakeholders. So how we define this, they're going to have input on how it's defined and what we do, and so that becomes a very important element. Other worship dudes are going to be involved. So, and for that matter, in our case, Pastor Adam is going to be heavily involved. He's our worship guy here. So, and our elders are going to be key guys, and you get the idea. Our church, other churches, a little bit stretching out further. So, we've got some key. I can pop this over here, but it's clicking and dragging, and because I kind of arranged that poorly. But you get the idea. There is just some different things to think through, and just mind mapping and brainstorming out who are the key stakeholders here. So then what I want to do is I want to then get with these guys and talk to them about this idea. Get an idea. Are there other pastors who would be really caring enough or have the same mind enough, I should say, to do this with me? Are there other elders or other worship dudes that really have a passion for this, and who are they? And so as we think through mind map brainstorm, I want to talk to these people, talk to our elders. In fact, We were going to do this fall, but when I went and talked to our elders about it and got their buy-in, they really felt like it's something to put off for a year. So we're now shooting for the fall of 2015, which I'm perfectly fine with because there's more time to think through it. But you get the idea. We talked to our elders. I got them involved, got their heart. They're all for it. But just the time and quality was important to them, and so that became something we pushed off. So you get the idea. So they're identifying key stakeholders, interviewing those key stakeholders. And then we're going to end up documenting that in that concept document. So that's initiation phase, and then we're going to step into the planning phase. Now, I've already done a lot of this already, so here that is. I've just kind of thought through this praise in the park, and I thought through kind of very similar to what I've been teaching you. So here's a initiation phase, and I want to define the dream. So I'm going to really create that concept document, and then using that concept document, it's time to recruit the team. So I'm going to talk to pastors, maybe give them a call. Let's plan a lunch together. Let's have an initial brainstorm and see if we're all on the same page here. Worship guys. I want Pastor Adam to get on connecting to other worship leaders and brainstorming with them and then reporting back to me some of the things that he found. We eventually need to finalize a team that's going to work on this together and need to set up a meeting schedule. So you get the idea. We're coming out now with a actual work breakdown structure, tasks and hunks, chunks, and bytes of what's going to happen here. So once that's all planned, I need to input that plan someplace. Now, what I could do, I could use my resource allocation matrix, and I could then go through those individual steps and determine what I need for each step, materials, equipment, the people, and really think through my resources would be a good step to take, planning the resources. And then eventually I'm going to put them into a software, and I've already showed you Basecamp, or Trello, and in the videos I have posted, I actually use this exact work breakdown structure, and I put that into those softwares to help you learn how to make that work. So that's how that works. Now, I would also then come back, once it's planned, I would then think through communication. Who needs to know what, when do they need to know, how we're going to tell them, and who's going to tell them. And that's kind of how you do a communication plan. I'm also going to think through risk. That's really important here. And some risks are really coming up in my mind. Churches won't be excited about it. That's a big risk. Pastors won't see the vision for it. That's a big risk. Really, probably one of the biggest risks is going to be too many cooks in the kitchen, too many Indian chiefs, and who's going to take the lead, and how is that all going to work? We get the idea. You're thinking through, and you're thinking through the risks and how to navigate them when those things come up. And I have a risk plan that you can use to document all of that. And then once that's all planned out, like I have it, let me pull it up here, my initial phases again in what I would use, SG Project Pro. Now that that's all planned out, it's the initial part of that. You can see initiation phase and all that's in there. And now I need to communicate that plan to my people, and I do that via the reports. And there are some really great reports that you can use here that just shows like a simple task list of a project, and this is just like the simple things we need to get done. So I would print that out for whoever needs to have them, and so they're communicated with, so they know what the plan is. And then all along the way, I am now into the execution control phase, so that we're moving. I'm just keeping track of that plan, and I would use this. And I love Project Pro because you can see right here, this is the Gantt chart. This red line is today. So it is showing me exactly where I need to be. Just to show you this real quick, one of the things I really love about this specific software is that I'm able to see multiple projects in one view. So I have all my projects all lined up, and that red line shows me where I should be in my projects. And as long as I'm keeping track of them appropriately, I should be able to see where I'm at and how much I'm getting done, if I'm behind schedule, ahead of schedule, all of that. But again, we're tracking that using the software. Now, I'm asking for a team report, so we have figured out like how these other pastors and worship dudes are going to be connecting with us. Adam and I would have brainstormed that out. We'd have thought through like, are we going to do a meeting once every other week? Are we going to have them email us, or like how are we going to get reports back from them so we can plug it into the software? Or is this an example where we'd be better off using Basecamp and just working out the money for a couple of months and using that as a collaborative tool? Things we got to think through, but you get the idea. I want to hear how they're doing. I want to be able to track it effectively. And once we're completed, once we have the event and we're all done, I'm going to bring everybody back together again. We're going to celebrate what God has done, maybe share some stories about people coming to Christ,
share stories about how people were impacted, and then we're going to talk about, okay, how do we work? How was this project worth it? Was it a good thing to do? Should we do it again? What are some things we learned through the process? And all of that could be there. And then when everything's said and done, here in this software, I can archive these. I can just click an archive button, and it will actually archive these projects for me. So they're not on my list active, but I can pull them up again and remember. And again, one of the things I really like about this software is I can take notes in any one of these. So I can say, boy, this handout didn't look like it should, and we had to alter it or whatever. So I have all of that archived. They can remember what happened in this project. So next time we do it, boy, it can come a lot better. But yeah, and that's an overview of how that's accomplished. All right, I'm going to flip my screen back over. So, 3 different levels. We talked about the big view, just gave you the overview of projects. Then we went a little more into detail specifically about some of the tools that you can use. And then eventually we got into just really quickly running through an actual project, kind of start to finish, to show you how it rolls out. So I'm sure maybe a question on the top of your mind is, well, do you actually use this stuff? Do you actually do this? And yes, I do, and love it. We've used all those softwares. We're really enjoying the SG project. It's a little less collaborative, but it does really help. So quite a few, yeah, this is stuff that we're actually doing in our ministry and finding very helpful. Okay, a couple of questions that are coming up. Question from Mike. We're looking at SG project, right? Yes. So this software here, Mike, just to answer that for you again, let me flip back over my screen so you understand what I'm talking about. This software right here is SG Project. Now this is Pro. So this is the one I paid a little bit more money from, and that's why I can see all of my projects in one view. Now, so just to say this, if Gantt charts make you cross-eyed, then this is not the software for you. You know, because I've kind of lived in the project management world, I like to see a Gantt chart, and Gantt charts make sense to me. To be honest, they don't make sense to Adam, my worship guy. So I don't really ever show him the Gantt chart. But the thing I like about the Pro version, and you can't do this in the other version, but in the Pro version on the reports, I can choose just to have a simple task list. Okay, so I can just see what that task list looks like, and here's all the different elements of what I can do in this version. And by clicking on report, it'll actually show me the report. You don't have this kind of detail when you have the cheaper version of it. But if task lists are something that, again, make you buggy, then this is not the software for you. I would suggest using Trello or Basecamp instead. But if it doesn't, if this makes sense to you, then yeah, it's a great product to use. Can I take your picture of your filing? Yes, take a picture of my filing is fine. I think you're teasing me, but if you're not and you really want to see how I do my files, it's not that hard. It's just an A to Z and then a projects folder. That's all it is. And in the projects folder, I have just various things. I do have counseling documents back here too, and this is locked when I leave. But that's all the filing that I do. It's not very complicated at all. Very simple filing. All right, well, guys, I pray that this is a helpful thing to you. I kind of feel like I was, you know, shooting a fire hose at you with tons of information. I hope that's helpful. Okay, I got a question here from Logan that I want to address. There are a couple potential hurdles in my mind. One, making sure the team of people actually use the software. Very good, very true. And two, discipline to use the software. I might need a PM system to use the PM system. Okay, so if let me just answer two first. If the PM software is looking confusing to you, I get that. Really, the hardest work in it is getting the once you have the mind map done, once you have all the tasks planned out, getting it into the software is the most time-consuming thing. And when you're using something like SG Project, yeah, it is more difficult. There's more things to think through: duration, start times, finish times. But like Basecamp, you know, I've just used like an intern or a secretary, and I've just said, okay, here are the tasks. Go into Basecamp and just type them in, and that's been really, really helpful. Also, the other question: keeping the team using the software. Yeah, that's true.
Though I'm telling you, when it's a collaborative tool, we've just had a lot of success. People have used it. Now, not everybody does, and you kind of have to encourage them along the way. And one of the reasons why I moved over to SG Project is to not worry about that. I mean, Adam's great about it. My secretary is great about it, but not everybody is. So yeah, it's a kind of a hurdle you have to get through, so just think through that. But again, the most important things are the principles that you understand as far as initiation and planning. So you have a plan, you know what's going on. The key team members have a plan, they know what's going on. And if people and the fringes or people that are doing the individual tasks, if they don't have such a clue, it's not quite as important. So I hope that's helpful to you. Other questions if you guys have, don't be afraid to post them. Thank you, Dan. I'm glad it was helpful to you. It's encouraging to know. Okay, SG does work on iOS. Yes, there is. Someone asked about, or Daniel's talking about SG Simple Genius in the iOS. Yes, it does. That's one of the things I like about it, though I do believe that there's additional costs to the software. In other words, if you buy the SG for the Mac, you also then have to additionally buy the one for the iPhone and the iPad. Like, they're all separate costs, which is kind of a bummer, but that's how it works. Another question came in from Mike. What have you learned about delegating the project management? When to manage the project, when to be on the vision, and when to offload the measure? Okay, good question, especially from a senior pastor's perspective, Mike. Honestly, I've been teaching the Gantt chart project management stuff at the Harvest Training Center for the last couple of years. The first year I taught it, I did a class very similar to this one, and they looked at me like cross-eyed. It was like, what in the world, you know, because they just weren't project managers, and I was trying to come in and make them project managers. I mean, I just had to recognize that my journey is unique. I just kind of assumed like every senior pastor is the same way I am, and that's just not true. And what I mean by that is, you know, I'm just kind of geeky, all right? So I get into the detail of it, not everyone does. And if that's you, if you're like, man, just in this detail kind of stuff, just not where I'm at, and actually you're very normal as a senior pastor who you're just not in the detail of it. What I think is important is that you know the process, you know the phases, you know what needs to happen in each phase, and if you have a detail-oriented person, then you use them. If you have somebody willing to get through and to track all this stuff for you, fantastic. In fact, at the training center, they encourage most of the guys to get in and to find a project lead for the launch, a launch coordinator they call it. And so now when I teach it, I'll quickly cover the phases. I give them a Gantt chart, kind of a list. The one that we were provided just really stinks. So I give them kind of a list of all the tasks. By month. So in January, here's some things you're thinking through. In February, March, and April, and I give that to them, and I say, okay, give this to your launch coordinator, and then here's my number. I'm kind of doing this, so I can say to them, hey, go on to harvestforwayne/projects and check it out there, and hopefully that'll be a help to them. Other questions are coming in. I want to be sure I'm hitting them all. Yes, Greg, I did say I'm a little geeky, and when I say a little, I mean a lot geeky. So, good. Mike, I hope that answers your question about that. Again, if you feel like, man, this is like a ton of detail and I'm just not into it, you're very, very normal. Most senior pastors aren't. My initial rolling out of this, I was really imagining the Greg Longs. Greg Long is not a senior pastor, but he's definitely geeky. And he's on staff at a church as kind of an administrative pastor, and that's really kind of more along the line of where I think this would be beneficial. But again, some of you guys don't have that, and like I don't have that. I just got me, and so hopefully these things will help. Well, okay, I'll tell you that if other questions come in, I'll do my best to answer them. But as of now, I want to say thank you for coming on. Very blessed that you guys were a part of what we had going on here. And if I can answer questions along the way, my email address, don't be afraid to utilize that. Facebook, whatever. And I'd love to be more specific. There's a ton more detail to go into. But this is enough to get you started. And yeah, I want you to use it. I want you to bring God glory through it. So I'm going to have one more word of prayer for us, and then I'm going to let you go. So let's pray. God, I thank you so much for the men who came on to be a part of this. God, thank you for revealing these processes and allowing us to use them. But we know we can do all the planning in the world. We can think through all the steps in the world. But God, if we don't cry out and pray, Father, if we don't seek your face and ask your blessing, then our plans are nothing. And God, let us never feel like our plans can supersede your sovereignty. And while thinking about that, God, I just want to pray for the men that there's no one that would tune into this with the hope of building a bigger church because of it. And it's not the goal. God, I pray that you would have our only, if only be, if only I can make Jesus known, if only I can bring God glory, and let that be our motivation. And then let these things just be tools to get that accomplished more effectively in the lives of people. Father, we love you because you love us. Use these things for your name and your glory in Christ's name. Amen. All right, gentlemen and ladies and whatever, thanks for logging in, and you are loved.